All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome to our, I don't know what, pre-market. Let's see what's happening today. Today is Thursday, May 6th. We survived May the 4th and also Cinco de Mayo. So
We
anyhow,
did.
good morning, Mark.
Good morning, Marcus. How are you doing?
Doing good, doing good. Hey, before we get started to talk about today's markets, let's take a quick look of what happened yesterday. Stocks were pretty mixed yesterday, right?
Yeah, they were. Markets, they opened slightly higher. Let's take a look at the Dow. And if you go to a 5-minute chart, Marcus,
Oh, yeah.
markets opened higher, and then they pulled back a little bit. And then they were just, marching to session highs. So there's that little morning dip up to session highs, another surge higher in the afternoon, Dow making record highs. But then in the last hour of trading, there was a bit of a pullback. The Dow still finished with a record close. S&P was just barely above break even, but the Nasdaq did finish with a loss.
Yeah. So, looking at this morning pre-market, if you're looking at the futures markets, very, very similar picture here. If we if you look at them, so we see that the Dow is slightly up, the S&P is around break even, and the Nasdaq is slightly down. Right?
Exactly. Same, like, I mean, deja vu with futures. Same
Yeah, yeah.
color.
Not much going on thus far. Because pre-market, I mean, this morning we had the ADP non-farm employment change that was on the calendar. Oh no, that was actually
Oh, no,
yesterday.
that's right.
This morning was unemployment claims. There we go.
Yeah. And the weekly jobless claims came in lower than expected, fell to a new pandemic low. So below 500,000 for the first time since mid-March of 2020.
Now let's see. Did the markets react to this? I just want to bring up the a 5-minute chart of the E-mini S&P futures. Not really,
Yeah,
right? I mean, this is
yeah.
where we see overnight just all the way up and down. So not really a surprise. It's kind of, I guess, what they're expecting.
Well, the bigger report is going to be the jobs report tomorrow morning at 8:30 Eastern time. So the monthly jobs report is always going to be a bigger number, or at least one that people watch, traders watch, because the Fed's taking that with a little more interest. Weekly jobless claims, I mean, at some point we do expect them to fall. And historically, they're not really a major market moving report. It's just something that comes out every week. But we paid a little more attention to it since the pandemic, just because the numbers were crazy. They were off the charts.
Right, right. All right, let's talk about a few individual stocks. So, I mean, yesterday we had the news that, well, it seems that the Biden administration supports waiving patents for the COVID vaccines. This was in the news a few days ago. And yesterday, U.S. Trade Representative Katherine Tai announced they support a waiver for this intellectual property protections. And this is why we basically have Pfizer, Moderna. I mean, all of them are trading lower here this morning. If you take a look at this pre-market, so Pfizer is down 3.35% after they had really a volatile day yesterday following earnings. Also, BioNTech, BNTX. Let me just bring this up. Oops, BNTX. There we go. So BioNTech getting hit hard here this morning. I mean, yesterday they were down 3.4%. This morning pre-market, they're down 11.8%. Who else do we have in this batch here? Moderna, MRNA. So I think Moderna also got hit hard. So yesterday they were all already tumbling 6%. This morning, tacking on another 8.3%. So what is it? Around 15% down. So wow.
Yeah,
So this is some news that moved the markets here this morning, right?
sure. And it's interesting because of course, the reasoning behind it is to open up these vaccines across the world, especially to countries that are struggling right now because they don't have the same resources. But there's still a manufacturing issue, right? Like, they still need to be manufactured, and that right now is the bigger issue for not getting those vaccines to other parts of the world.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I did see that Moderna, they announced that their COVID vaccine for adolescents is 96% effective. So that
Oh
is
wow.
for the 12 to 17-year-old range group.
Yeah.
or age group.
Hey, since we're at the topic of the coronavirus, so it seems, let me just refresh this, that the vaccinations are actually going down, as we can see here. Let me just bring my markup up here. So, I mean, we hit the peak somewhere around here, right? And right now, dramatically going down. So it's down around 32% of people getting vaccinated every day. And we know that there was always a few people who gave incentives for getting vaccinated. So, for example, Krispy Kreme was giving away free donuts to anybody who presents a vaccine certification. But now I heard that New York will offer free Mets or Yankee tickets to people who get their vaccine at their stadium. Did you hear about this?
I didn't hear that, but I heard there were shots and beers, in some places back east.
I mean, it seems that, yeah, we have now Maryland offering $100 to state employees that get fully vaccinated. We have Detroit giving out $50 prepaid debit cards to anyone who drives a resident to a vaccine site. In New Jersey, this is the cool thing. In New Jersey, anyone over the age of 21 can take their vaccination cards to a participating brewery for a free beer. What do you know? Okay. Anyhow, all right. Let's
When I
talk
was
about
21, that would have been a huge incentive.
right, get a free beer. So let's talk about a few earnings, because we had more and more companies reporting earnings. Who was on your radar here this morning?
Yeah, Budweiser reported earnings and they're up nicely pre-market. Last I looked, it was over 5%. The world's largest brewer reported first quarter earnings that were better than expectations. And they said that this came with, even though lockdowns closed much of the hospitality, business in Europe. So that was pretty impressive for them.
Yeah. I also saw that Etsy was on the move this morning. Unfortunately, in the other direction here. I mean, right now I'm not in Etsy. We have been trading it. And if you look at this, Etsy, I think we talked about this with our mastermind members, that this might slump down. And yes, this morning we see that Etsy is down 8% because they're forecasting a slower growth ahead. And I mean, they were a clear pandemic winner. If we just go here to a weekly chart, then we see how Etsy has really progressed during this pandemic, right? I mean, this is when the pandemic hit, and then at some point there were only masks available on Etsy, and more people turned to Etsy here, discovered Etsy, but now they say, well, there will be slower growth, and this is why this morning they are down 8.4%. Yesterday they were already down 2%, so down 10% right now.
Yeah, and to your point, Marcus, I failed to write down the exact numbers, but I want to say that the second quarter of last year, there was something like 360 million. I think maybe $360 million in mask sales compared to 90 million in the last quarter. And again, don't quote me on those numbers, but those averages are clear, like almost a quarter of what it was just last year.
Yeah. Who else is moving this morning?
Well, we have to talk about Peloton.
Geez, yeah, Peloton. You know what? Before we do this, let's talk about Uber really quick, because we talked about
Sure.
Lyft yesterday. So Uber reported earnings. So really interesting. They are down here this morning, almost 5%. They were down yesterday, even though they say, well, we had record gross bookings, and they posted the smallest quarterly loss in history. But I think this is where people said, well, they're really still posting a loss. So here we see it. Can zoom in a little bit, the earnings over the last quarters, right? I mean, it is getting better, as we can see here. So the losses are getting smaller, but still not being able to turn a profit here.
Yeah, I mean, at some point, come on, guys.
Yeah.
And then I think they also said that they would be paying U.S. drivers more, and so.
Well, it seems that right now it's a little bit tricky to get drivers back to work. Yeah. But hey, okay, yeah, we got to talk about Peloton. So Peloton, what's happening here? I mean, yesterday they already got hit hard. So yesterday they were down 15%, and this morning pre-market they're down another 3.5%. So what's happening?
Yeah, so I mean, Peloton, as most people know, has been a pandemic darling, just going up, 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 and up, and selling a bunch of bikes and treadmills. Well, there were some concerns over the treadmill itself, and they did a voluntary recall of 125,000 of their Tread Plus machines and 1,050 of their Tread machines because of dozens of injuries and even one death of a child that was tied to the machine in some way. So that's sending the stock lower. And yesterday, there's more than $4 billion in market value wiped out because of that slide.
Yeah, I mean, I heard it's a total recall. I heard that they're
Yeah.
recalling all of them. Yeah, so it's really, it sounds like an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. Total Recall. You remember this
No,
movie?
yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, good flick. But yeah, it's definitely a complete recall. But they initiated it on their end rather than being forced.
Yeah,
They
but there
finally
was already
made
some pressure on
it.
it. I mean, this is where they
Yes.
were going down. I mean, they popped up on our scanner quite a few times, and we always said no to Peloton. I mean, I didn't
Yeah.
like the business model. I mean, we said no to them for other reasons because I think it's easy for another competitor to come in. So I always said no. The premiums were really super attractive, but no, I don't like their business model. I don't. It's too easy to just come in with for Bowflex or Schwinn or something like this to have something similar. I mean, their bikes are $4,300, and you need a monthly subscription there. So it's kind of crazy. Peloton is getting hit hard here. So let's see if they can bounce back from this. Right now, they're just handing out refunds like crazy.
Yeah, I
So
mean, at this point, be careful. Where's the bottom? Who knows?
right, right. Hey, Facebook. We got to talk about Facebook. So Facebook's big day was yesterday, where their oversight board had to make a decision whether to permit former President Trump back on the social network or not, and they said no. So that former President Trump cannot come back on Facebook. So let's talk about this oversight board just for a minute. So this oversight board is meant to be a neutral third party. And so it consists of what it was, I think, 20 members. And there's two criteria if you want to be on this oversight board. Number one, you can't be affiliated with Facebook. And number two, you have to be considered an expert in areas like law and ethics and free speech and journalism. So there are several professors and a Nobel Peace Prize laureate and a former prime minister. All of them are on the roster. And so they basically yesterday said, yeah, you know what? No to former President Trump coming back. And they also kind of slapped Facebook because they said, you know what, guys? You are very, very inconsistent with your policies. Because the reason why Trump was banned was for violence, but then they said, you know what? All these I want to say, I wanted to say something with false, but I actually say lies. There's still lies being spread on Facebook, and they're not moderating this. So this is where they said, okay, guys, you got to get your act together, and so we'll see how they react to this. I mean, yesterday they were down 1.5%. That's pretty much in line with the Nasdaq, with the market overall. This morning, not really a strong reaction, but it's definitely something that was in the news or is in the news here today.
Yeah, we'll see the follow through there. Now, Marcus, did they say that it's I think I read that it's not a permanent ban, but they have to decide on whether it's going to be permanent, or was it permanent?
I didn't read into this,
Okay.
so yeah,
All right.
I just know that they made the decision, and the decision was no.
Sure. So it's not just Mark Zuckerberg right now.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so one more thing before we go, because we are live trading with our masterminds here in a moment, so we got to wrap it up. But oops, there we go. One of the things that I wanted to mention here is lumber again. So let's just bring it up because prices for lumber is just going up like crazy. I mean, look at this. This is lumber. Boom. And we talked about it the other day. I mean, what's stopping lumber here? There's a shortage. And we talked about this, that it has added around $35,000 to the cost of building a new home, right? And that's probably an average, but that's quite significant. A sheet of plywood that cost $30 at Home Depot costs now $60. That's I mean, it's just crazy. It keeps going up. It keeps going up. So we have shortages in other areas as well. I mean, we have shortages in semiconductors. We have shortages in lumber. We have shortages in steel. And recently I heard even in chlorine. It's somewhere in the state where there was a chlorine plant that, I don't know, exploded or had another problem. And now there's Pool-mageddon, which basically means that you can attach Mageddon to any word that you want, right? And now it's Pool-mageddon. Anyhow. All right. Well, we got to jump into our mastermind call, Trading the Open Live. Super excited about this. Hey, hope you enjoyed today's stock market update, that you know what is going on in the markets right now, what traders are focusing on. If you enjoyed this, click on like, hit the subscribe button, and hit the little notification bell. This way you get notified whenever we go live. All right.
Happy trading, everybody.
Okay. Talk to you soon.